Believe podcast, a conversation between friends over a passage of scripture. I'm Carolyn Kirsten.
And I'm Marvin Williams.
And today is episode 140. We are looking at a couple parables, some teachings, some live action scenes from Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So kind of a little bit of everything today.
Absolutely. All right. I got a question for you. What is it inside of us that recoils don't at the idea of serving other people?
Oh.
There's something that recoils inside of us.
We like ourselves, and we want life to be easy for ourselves. I think often that is plain. I was going to give an example from yesterday to throw my family under the bus, but I will instead talk about my own, because there for sure are times when I'm like, oh, the last thing I want to do right now is empty the dishwasher.
Right,
like something that's so insignificant. And if I think about pioneering days and how they had to go down to the river to do the dishes and all the things, but that's how selfish I am, that I'm like, all I really want to do is just start reading my book, but I've got to do. So it goes deep, that selfishness.
Tell me about it. I think for me, it feels like they're taking advantage. They're getting over on me. And I'm the one who's doing all of the serving. I'm the one.
A little scorekeeping. I hear.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You kind of read my report card there. So yeah, it feels like I'm the one doing it, and then when there is not gratitude in return, and it feels like I'm being taken advantage of, and so I'm asking, like, okay, when are they going to do their part? And so I think for the most part, something inside of us does recoil, and Jesus kind of deals with that in some of the teachings that we'll look at today. But we start with a parable, and it is a parable about the generosity of God. It's a parable about workers in a vineyard.
Yes.
And again, this parable actually challenges our notion of fairness. Again, we hear it all the time. It is not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. And so let's talk a little bit about this particular parable, and very quickly.
Yes. So Jesus tells the story. A master of the house goes out. He hires some laborers first thing in the morning, says, I'm going to pay you a denarius to work. They say, great. They get out there and they start working. Partway through the day, I need more workers. He goes out and gets some more, and they say, yep. They come. They agree to hit the payment. All good. The last hour of the day, they got to get this done. Get some more workers. They get going. So then it's pay time. And he starts paying the guys that only worked for an hour, first. And they get paid a denarius. And then the guys that came in the midday also get paid a denarius. And then the guys that have been there all day long, you see the fairness coming in here, all day long also get paid a denarius. And they say, what?
Yeah.
We worked so much longer.
In the heat of the day.
All day long.
That's right.
And we get paid the same as those guys that just were here for an hour.
Yeah.
And the master says, well, it's what you agreed to. You agreed to be paid a denarius. And if I decide to be generous with these that worked an hour, what is that to you? So.
And drops the mic.
Yes.
So this is probably, one of my favorite parables. And I think it's because it really does highlight the generosity of God, number one, but he gets to do whatever he wants to do with his resources. And I think it's a favorite, but it also kind of sticks me a little bit because I have gotten jealous over the generosity of God. I have gotten jealous over, like, God, I've been serving you, I've been working for you all these years, and then someone who's, still wet behind the ears and just coming into the game, they see the court and they see, get more playing time than I do, using a sports analogy. And it's like, God, what are you doing? And so this really hits me. It kind of that last statement, are you jealous of my generosity? And I get to do what I want to with my resources. And so here we see this idea of comparison. We see individuals who are not grateful for the generosity that God has given.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I love this parable because of the reversal nature, but also because, man, it really does hit me between the eyes and say, okay, God, am I like this as well? And so, so anyway, God's grace is a gift. It's not a reward for human effort, and Jesus kind of shows us that in this parable.
Yeah, and what you said at the beginning about fairness, like that is a value, as I think Americans in particular, Western mindset, is that we hold fairness very highly.
Yeah.
And this flips that on its head. God's generosity, he can do what he wants with his resources. Grace, we use that word, God's grace, that by definition means undeserved favor.
Yeah.
It's not something you earn. There is no one deserves any of it. Now, in this story, they got what they agreed to.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing to complain about.
Absolutely.
And just because the master happens to, but that is when that fairness thing, and you mentioned comparison, particularly in wanting to keep things fair, but in general, there is nothing that's going to zap your energy or drain your contentment like comparison. Comparison kills contentment.
Yeah.
Like they would have been perfectly happy with the denarius that they agreed to if they didn't compare what they got with what others had.
I would imagine when the last group got paid first and they saw them getting paid a denarius, I can only imagine that the first group is like who had been working all day, like, oh man, if he's that generous to someone who's worked an hour, our paycheck is gonna be be big.
Yeah.
That's right. So and yet God is the master of the house, who kind of is God-like figure, represents God. He's very fair with his resources. He could have not paid them anything, and he could have just said, something, you worked and that's it. And yet he says, hey, I am going to be very, very generous with you. And he was. But again, the moment you start comparing your life to other people, I think that's the moment. I love that statement. Comparison kills contentment. And we see it here, but we also see it in our lives as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we think, they're, whether it's comparing material possessions or the apparent relationship they have with their spouse, or they have so many friends. I mean, we talked about social media in the last episode, but if there's anything that sets us up for the killing of contentment through comparison, it is social media that gives us the highlight reel of, they have such an amazing vacation and we're just, having a staycation. I was going to say camping, but we happen to have someone in the room that loves camping and I didn't want to. Oh, wait, I said it anyway.
I totally agree that, this is another heart check. What's in our hearts, and can I genuinely rejoice over another person's blessing? And if I can't genuinely rejoice over another person being blessed, then I really do have to check my heart. And there might be that jealousy monster roaming around in our hearts that we have to tame. And so again, I love this parable. It really does help us kind of give ourselves a heart check. And as a result, so we when we leave this parable, Jesus tells this parable, and then all of a sudden when we're looking at the Matthew passage, he foretells his death again. And just very quickly, we should be prepared. If we're following Jesus, we should be prepared to suffer. We should be prepared to suffer as Jesus predicts his own suffering. In this sense, he is highlighting the cost of discipleship. Yeah. That if you follow Jesus, people are going to ridicule you. People are going to laugh at you. People are going to say, you still believe that? So we ought to just be prepared to suffer. So the reason this is important, when it happens, we shouldn't be surprised when it does happen. But this also presumes that we are going to live our faith out loud. Now, if I'm a secret disciple, then I can escape suffering. But Jesus is living his purpose out loud. But if we live like I follow Jesus, not only do I follow Jesus, I've been baptized, letting people know I'm identified with Jesus Christ. I'm letting his values shape my values, and it's going to bump up against the world's values, and we just ought to be prepared to be laughed at and ridiculed because we follow Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then Matthew and Mark highlight a little interaction.
Yeah.
James and John, two of his disciples, are brothers, and their mom comes up to Jesus with a special request. And she says to Jesus, well, I was going to adapt it a little bit, but I'll just read what it says. She says, say that these two sons of mine are to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in your kingdom. She's a very proud mom. And she wants what's best for her boys.
Yep.
And
Jesus,
so,
when you blow up,
yep,
I want my boys to be right there with you.
Yep, they are your guys. They are your right and left hand guys.
Yep.
And Jesus replies by saying, you do not know what you are asking.
Yeah, yeah.
And she really has no idea. Like
she
does think he's going to Jerusalem. He's going to be crowned king.
Yep.
This is the time they can have these powerful positions. This is what we've been waiting for.
When the coronation happens, I want my boys to be right there. She's still thinking, and many of the disciples who've been walking with Jesus a long time now,
even though he keeps reminding them of his death.
Exactly. He just did that. That this is not a material kingdom.
Yeah.
And they still don't get it.
Can't wrap their heads around it.
And it goes right over their heads. And what Jesus reminds them of, hey, listen, like, yeah, if you want to sit on my right and my left, that's not mine to give, but you will drink the cup. I think that's what Mark says. You will drink the cup. And the cup we know is not it's not a cup of coronation. And when kings are toasted, it is truly a cup of suffering and pain because you've chosen to follow Jesus.
Yeah. And again, we are circling back. Well, we see God's generosity, and we, in the opening question, talked about service. And here's where that comes in.
Yeah.
Because Jesus actually says, okay, sure. You want to be great? I mean, he didn't use a snotty tone. That maybe came across a little snotty. I'm sure he did not use a snotty tone. But he said this is Mark 10:43 and 44, but whoever would be great among you must be your servant.
Yeah.
And whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. I do okay, you want to be great?
Yeah.
Well, here's what that looks like in my kingdom.
Yeah.
Being great means you're serving. Being first means you are last. That is what you are signing up for.
Absolutely.
And that's what his definition of leadership is. Like, yep, you want to be a great leader, then you're serving. You want this? Here's what it actually looks like. It's not what you are thinking.
Absolutely. And I think, and here is the recoiling. Like, whoa, wait a minute. We want to be big shots in your kingdom. And Jesus says, as you mentioned, what it means, then it means that you're giving up your life for another person. You're actually sacrificing your comfort for someone else's comfort, which again, it's a very, very difficult thing to do. And yet Jesus helps us to reimagine what greatness is. He helps us to reprioritize what greatness is.
Mm-hmm.
And it has nothing to do with sitting on thrones. It has nothing to do with wearing crowns. It has everything to do with putting on a towel, according to John 13, when Jesus puts on a towel and he washes his disciples' feet. It has to do with doing the dirty jobs as opposed to doing the ones that are most comfortable. And Jesus, again, his kingdom is upside down. We see this reversal, upside down kingdom. And I think that's what makes us recoil sometimes, because I think we've been sold a bill of goods that if you follow Jesus, then everything is going to be smooth sailing. If you follow Jesus, you're going to be blessed, blessed, blessed. You're going to have all the good stuff. And Jesus turns that thinking upside down and says, if you follow me, you're going to have to serve. If you follow me, you're going to be last. If you follow me, you're going to experience suffering like I experienced suffering. And I think they couldn't handle it. And I think sometimes we can't handle the truth. Few good men. So
I remember. A key verse that often people memorize is Mark 10:45. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus really summarizes his purpose right there. He came to not to be served. It wasn't about what can you do for me and elevating himself. He came to be served. Not to be served, but to serve, and to, in fact, serve to the extent of giving his life as a ransom for many. I think it's worth that word ransom.
Yeah.
In our day, we think of that like a kidnapper's request.
Right, exactly.
But in this, a ransom in biblical times would have been the price that was paid to free a slave.
Okay.
And so that helps us. We know that Jesus giving up his life was the price that was paid for us to be free from the power of sin through his death and resurrection. I think that's a little helpful just to know that cultural context versus a kidnapping ransom doesn't quite have the same
exactly
explanation to it. So, but that really does summarize Jesus's purpose. Even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.
And I think in short, he says it again: Rome will not save you, but my death will.
Yes.
And so we see this beautiful picture of reversal again, all throughout this particular story. And so I love that we see that God is a generous God, but he is also one who suffers, and he is also the one who helps us to see what greatness truly is. Greatness is about humility and service versus comfort and power and status. And so
you already answered what you can believe about God.
Yeah.
So what can we believe about ourselves and others from this?
Yeah, I think it truly is about being humble servants, and I think we can easily go through a day and not think about it. We can think about being served. We go to a restaurant, someone is serving us, but I wonder if we paused and said, today I want to be a humble servant. And I believe God will reveal moments and opportunities for us to serve other people. So we are called servants, and but I think we need the power of the Holy Spirit to live into our identity as servants. And so I think that's an assignment for me. Is what does it look like for me to serve my family? What does it look like without complaining, without keeping tally marks and scores, but what does it look like for me to serve them and serve them well and get joy out of doing it as opposed to complaining about doing it?
That I loved your challenge. I mean, I love it and I don't love it, but you go through my day thinking of ways I can serve. But it immediately made me think of when I was arriving this morning, just turned on Dunkel Road. I don't even know what that little cross street is behind Big B and the Verizon store. But there was a car, and I noticed the guy was out of his car, which I thought, so it caught my eye. But he was picking up trash at the corner. And then he got back in his car. And so then in my rearview mirror, I saw him get back in his car and then go on his way.
Wow.
So the story I told myself, I was like, well done, buddy. Like, maybe it was his trash, maybe it blew off his car. But the story I told myself was he saw it because it was kind of a significant empty bottle was the thing I saw him pick up. He's driving along, sees something that's a mess that not of his making, and he takes the time to stop, get out, go around his car, pick it up, and then go on his way. I just thought that's another example of putting others first.
Absolutely.
Particularly if that was not his mess and he just stopped to pick it up. I mean, I thought maybe he had that mindset of I'm here to serve.
Yeah.
I'm he saw something that needed to be done, and he took care of it. So, well done, whoever you were.
Yep,
at the
love it.
Dunkel Road. And for sure, as we see God's generosity to us, the undeserved favor that he pours out on us.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, a response of serving others feels quite small in response to his amazing grace to us.
Yeah. Love it.
So thank you, friends, for listening. Be sure to share this podcast with a friend, whether that's sharing in a podcast feed, or we're also from the YouTube channel if you want to watch it, or just have us playing in the background while you're making dinner or folding laundry. That works too. But we would love to have you share this podcast with a friend as well.